Welcome to Meeple Podcast, Season 4.
In this episode, we welcome to Meeple Podcast the current UK Carcassonne champion, organizer of the Mind Sports Olympiads, also a player of the British national Carcassonne team. With us, Matt Tucker, better known by his BGA nickname, statmatt. Welcome, Matt. How are you?
Hello, Joaquin. I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me onto the Meeple Podcast.
Congratulations for your first place in the UK Carcassonne event.
Thanks. It's always a tough field at the UK Championship, so I was delighted to win the tournament back in June. I think I've been steadily improving, so it's nice to back that up with a big result. I felt like I played well on the day, but I also had quite nice tiles throughout. However, as one former champion said to me on the day, you always need a bit of luck to win a Carcassonne tournament.
I hope you're a fan of the Meeple Podcast.
I can't claim to be a regular listener, but the podcast first came to my attention last year when you interviewed my UK teammate Chris Wallace, who is Wallace Prime on Board Game Arena.
Well, it's an honor to have a player from Dunchurch's environment.
Thank you. Dan is such a great ambassador for Carcassonne.
I like to start asking you about the national team because I'm something we know much more. The expectation that the WTCOC promotes is spectacular. It is certainly a very relevant event, and after 4 editions, it has become an unprecedented event that can be put on a pair with the individual World Cup organized by Hamsing Luke and Spielezentrum. What do you think about that?
I think it's wonderful that out of the pandemic came this truly international community of competitive Carcassonne players, and to see that so many players and nations take part shows just how global the appeal of Carcassonne is. I would say that online and in-person Carcassonne are quite different though. Both have their advantages and uniqueness, such as it would be impossible to be able to replicate the World Team Championship in person. You just wouldn't be able to get that many players in one place at one time. However, it makes it such a special event to have the World Championship held in person, and have the national champions all travel to Germany. For me, being invited to travel to a foreign land to represent my country in an international tournament is an honour, and not something that everybody gets to do in their lifetime.
I wanted to start by asking you when you first came on board the British team, at the beginning of the time.
The story goes back quite a bit, and I'll briefly explain my history of competitive board gaming to give the story in the full context. I only started playing board games competitively as recently as 2018. This was when I first went to the UK Games Expo, which is our national convention for games. There, I played in a Ticket to Ride tournament with my brother. We both enjoyed it, and afterwards I found out that the people who had ran that Ticket to Ride tournament were called the Mind Sports Olympiad, or MSO, and they had their own week-long event in London, where I live. So I went to a couple of tournaments in 2018, and then did a few more in 2019. For 2020, I was planning to do a lot more, and was disappointed that the pandemic forced a postponement for the live event. However, instead, the MSO managed to put on a month-long online event, and with it all available from the comfort of my own home, I signed up for as much as I could. This included both a 4-player and 2-player Carcassonne tournament. After a mid-table result in the 4-player event, my attention turned to the 2-player competition. To my surprise and delight, I did very well. I recorded 6 wins out of 7 games, and was one of the just 7 players from a high-caliber field to make the knockout stages. Sadly, I lost my quarterfinal, and that could have been that until next year's tournament. However, my good results had attracted the attention of a Dan is 30, who invited me to join the UK Carcassonne team. I didn't know there was such a thing. So I joined the team just after the first edition of the World Teams Championship, but in time for the first European Teams Championship. Joining the team made me want to improve my Carcassonne ability and add value to the team, and Carcassonne has become my most played game since then.
Tell us, Dan Chart is the real architect of your national team.
Dan can almost exclusively be credited with bringing each of the team members on board and uniting us from a group of individuals into an active group and a real team.
What happens with the British team that doesn't manage to reach the playoffs despite the great players they have?
To use the BGA terminology, I would say we have a lot of expert players, but no master level players. The all-round quality of the other teams keeps improving, and there really are no easy matches these days. Spain, for example, were one of the weaker European nations in the first couple of tournaments I played, but have really improved and had a great and well-deserved result in the 2023 World Team Championship.
Well, tell us about your experience in Carcassonne leading up to your recent victory in the UK Championship.
My first entry to the UK Championship was in 2021, and after winning my first 4 games, I then lost 2 and was out. Last year went disastrously for me, as I could only manage 3 wins out of 6. I did recover some pride with a very satisfying silver medal at last summer's MSO competition. I've been fortunate that I've been able to get some good face-to-face practice against my girlfriend Sam, who has been improving herself and is always willing to play me and practice with the 15-minute clocks that in-person play has.
Which players would you focus on from the tournament that you won and brought you to Germany?
Anyone from the UK team is always a tough match. Wengi Lim, Chris Wallace and Jack Fowler are all past UK champions who are in the team. And then there's Dan, who has been so close on a number of occasions. My brother Chris, who has only fully embraced competitive Carcassonne relatively recently, has a good habit of outperforming his ability in tournaments. Another team member, Favourites, was playing his first live tournament. Finally, I can't not mention Alexei, who was definitely the highest ranked online player in the room.
Tell the audience the road to the British Carcassonne crown, matches, opponents, moments to remember, I don't know, whatever you want to tell.
Well, I did actually write down a full account of the day, with all the twists and turns of every game. It's several pages long, so I'll try and summarise a little more, otherwise your audience will start using the Meeple podcast to help them get to sleep. So the tournament had an initial 6 rounds in a Swiss format, and then any player with 5 or more wins progressed to the knockout stage. In round 1, my opponent was called Reese, who I coincidentally played in the first round the previous year. Reese remembered me, and also that I convincingly beat him in 2022. I did the same again in 2023 to get up to a winning start. Round 2 was also a large win, but that was where the easy games stopped. In round 3, I was up against a player called Charlie, who I hadn't come across before. Charlie was a bit inexperienced, but was still playing his tiles well, and in all honesty, I really should have lost that game. I had to draw all of the last 3 curves to deny what would have been a game-clinching farm steal, and I had to close up a medium-sized city all in the last 10 tiles to take the win. It must have been close to a perfect run out of tiles for me. In round 4, I was drawn against Wengi Lim, who has won the UK Championship 3 times before. Wengi and I have played in 2021 and 2022, where we had breathless games, which have ended up with neither of us knowing who has won, but both times it was Wengi. This year I got revenge, as I won comfortably, with some farms and cloisters working out really well for me. I was up against Alexei for round 5. I got fortunate in this game as I drew all 3 of a triple city with road tiles, to deny Alexei from completing a medium-sized city that would have definitely been decisive. I don't think I played my best in this game, but it was enough to get a tie. The tournament format meant that I still had to avoid defeat in my 6th round to make the knockouts, as 4.5 points would not be enough. I had to face my brother Chris in round 6, with the loser being eliminated. Chris was the starting player, and chose to claim the yellow meeples that I always prefer. It didn't do him much good though, as some favourable early tiles saw me race into the lead, and Chris's attempts to introduce variance into the game backfired, so I won by quite a large margin in the end. This meant I had made a semi-finals, and here I had a rematch with Alexei. I took myself off for a few minutes and told myself that I would have to play better than I had in my earlier game against Alexei, but if I played my best Carcassonne, I could win the tournament. Our game was pretty tight, but I managed to take control of a sizable ruin and was able to manage the game in the closing stages to retain my small advantage and shut down any possibilities of Alexei overturning the deficit. I won by 4 points, but felt like I had played well and had the result just under control. In the final, I was up against Favourites on his UK Championship debut. The game started really well for me and I had a big lead on the scoreboard initially, but Favourites had some monasteries on the go, and then what looked like a mess of the city tiles quickly became a very real possibility of a completed city for him. Favourites had managed to protect the city and needed 2 specific tiles, but I wasn't able to attack and just had to hope that the 25% chance didn't happen and I would draw at least one of those crucial tiles. With about 6 tiles to go, Favourites got the first of these crucial tiles. To my surprise, he didn't immediately put it in the expected place. It quickly became clear to me and all those watching that Favourites had missed the significance of this tile. I was willing him not to spot the best move as he considered his options for what seemed like ages. Eventually, he pretty much discarded the tile, and I knew that victory was in sight. Unfortunately for Favourites, he drew that second crucial tile on his last turn and did place it where I expected. When we added up the points, I had won by 7. I felt I should tell Favourites of his blunder, and he was naturally disappointed to learn of it, but praised me for putting him under time pressure. He was into the last minute of his time by the end, and he said it was my excellent clock management that forced the error. It was ironic, as in the UK team I am famous for playing slowly, and I'm always the last to finish in our team championship games. But the practice with clocks with my girlfriend had paid off and I'd won the UK championship.
Thanks to the new way to access the World Cup in Germany, you are going to have 2 players from the UK Carcassonne tournament this year, yourself and Alexei, who qualified thanks to his team reaching the semi-finals of the WTCOC 2023.
Alexei is one of the best online players and has a tremendous understanding of the game. I've learned some things by watching his videos and he does a good job of his channel. However, I do think there are differences between online and in-person play, and perhaps Alexei doesn't get the opportunity to practice his face-to-face play. We've played 4 times in person, twice I've just mentioned, but also at the 2022 MSO tournament, and also this year's 2023 tournament, where I've also managed to beat him on both occasions. So I'm unbeaten across those 4 games. Our online record is 4-2 in his favour though. These are small sample sizes, which is also true of the in-person tournaments. I firmly believe if you ran the UK Championship again on the following day, you'd likely get quite a different final standings. It is a bit of an oddity how Alexei has managed to secure his ticket to Germany. I'm not sure I entirely agree with the methodology of awarding all of the places, but you do want to have the best Carcassonne players at the World Championship, and Alexei is certainly one of the best Carcassonne players.
Actually, to win a national championship is complicated. You have to have the perfect day, concentration, believe in winning, and bit of luck. And we are talking about players with the ability to reach this great achievement, obviously. It's very difficult for average players to win a national competition.
You really do. The in-person tournaments are always a marathon, and you need to have good stamina, as well as other factors you mentioned. I always spot that 1 or 2 lesser players will make it very deep into the tournament, and outrank some established players. This was me in that MSO competition in 2020, but these players always seem to come up a bit short of actually winning a tournament.
For you, what's the most important thing you are going to do in Germany at the World Championship? Playing Carcassonne, learning about a great Carcassonne competition, meeting huge international players, the Spiel Festival, to travel to another country?
For me, the most important thing is playing in the World Championship. That's why I'm going to Germany first and foremost. However, I will definitely be dedicating at least one day to the Spiel Festival, and I'm looking forward to meeting the other national champions and putting some faces to names. I'll be bringing my girlfriend, and we are big football fans, so we're hoping to get to a game in the area, hopefully a Borussia Dortmund match.
By the way, Matt, I think you are the ideal person to ask the following questions. Is there life after Carcassonne?
Wow, I'm not sure how to answer this one. There is more to life than Carcassonne. Board games in general do take up a large part of my life, but it's important to remember we play them for fun.
How did you get into the MCO organization?
In early 2021, the owner of the MSO, a man called Eitan Ilfeld, posted an advert saying he was looking to hire a web developer to launch a new board games website. I am a web developer, and I just so happened to be looking for a job at the time, so it was perfect, and I applied and got the job, which I still do today, which is being the developer, site admin, promoter, and many other things for playstrategy.org. PlayStrategy is a two-player games website which is based off the popular chess platform Lichess. Lichess is open source, so we were able to clone their site and make the changes we wanted to, which was to add many other abstract games beyond chess. So on PlayStrategy, we have Drafts, Othello, Mancala, and many more, with Go being launched in the next couple of weeks. From working with Eitan, it was a natural step to become involved in the MSO organisation, which we all do voluntarily. So I'm involved in planning the schedule, some logistics, and a lot of tech stuff as well, such as the online database and registration system. Then during the week, I play events in every session, and most likely are running a tournament as well.
By your point of view, what do you think is the most unknown thing in general about the mime sport Olympiads?
I find that a lot of people who haven't been to the MSO before are cautious about giving it a go, because it seems like such a fancy event from the title. They think that it would be far too serious and they wouldn't be good enough to take part. This is far from the truth. The MSO is open to all, and we have players of all ages and a range of abilities. I always say, if you enjoy playing a particular game and think you would enjoy spending a few hours playing that game several times in a row against a variety of players, then there is no reason not to give it a go. Players are taking it seriously, but there is always a friendly atmosphere and there is a nice community spirit amongst the players that play the full week.
Tell us something about the beginning of the MCO and its evolution over the years.
My understanding is that the MSO started back in 1997 to much fanfare and budget, and was billed as something that might compare to the Olympic Games, with grandmasters in the chess competitions, for example. However, the money soon dried up and things were scaled back. As the rise of 21st century board games, Eurogames, modern abstracts, etc. came, these were added to the MSO schedule, and now whilst there are many chess, poker and backgammon tournaments on the schedule, our more popular events are the Carcassonnes, Catans, Ticket to Ride, Seven Wonders, Azul, all those games that are super popular on BGA. There's not really anything like this, certainly in the UK, where you can go and play competitive tournaments in all these games. The other big thing worth mentioning about the MSO is the Pentamind. Each player gets a score from every event they play in, calculated from a formula based on their rank and the size of the field. There is a leaderboard which combines the player's best 5 scores across the week called the Pentamind. It's like finding the overall winner for the week, and we have a good group of players who take the competition for the Pentamind seriously. There's a documentary about the 2017 Pentamind available to watch on YouTube, which is well worth a watch if you want to see what the MSO is all about.
Recently, you have achieved the 3rd place in the Carcassonne event at the MCO, but is it possible to organize the tournament and play it at the same time? Not in the sense of chance, but into a technical and ethical way.
On the one hand, as you point out, it's not ideal to have the arbiter also playing in the event, as there is a conflict of interest. However, the MSO only runs with the help of a lot of volunteers, many of whom are very keen participants, such as myself. In all honesty, if I wasn't able to arbit and play, there's a chance that the Carcassonne tournament wouldn't take place at all. If there is ever any ruling that needs to be made involving a game I am in, then I would summon one of the other arbiters, who are running a different tournament in a different room, to judge on my incident. Any benefit of the doubt would probably go against me, as the MSA would be keen not to be showing favouritism towards me if it were not a clear-cut situation. Fortunately, in the time I've been doing it, I've not had any controversial incidents in any games where I am also the arbiter. Players seem to be pretty understanding of the situation and appreciative of my efforts to run the tournament, as well as being impressed that I'm able to play to a high level whilst also organising the event.
On the other hand, tell us about the course of the tournament, and especially about the semi-finals and the final.
The MSO tournament runs a bit differently to the UK Championship, where it's all about producing an outright winner. For the MSO event, we want to produce a ranking of all the players for the pantomime scoring, so it's just a 9-round Swiss with no precise final or semi-finals. In the first round, I had a simple win against a child of around 7, the youngest in the field. For rounds 2 and 3, I played against players who are very strong all-round games players, but they're not specialists at Carcassonne. I was able to grind out wins in both of those games. For round 4, I was up against the Belgian champion, Karl de Heiden. It was quite a blocky game, and I probably only won because I won a 50-50 to draw a crucial tile. So I was on 4 wins out of 4 going into the lunch break, and had to face the Catalan Daniel Angelats next. He managed to close out a big city when the odds weren't particularly in his favour, but from there he didn't give me any opportunities to make a comeback and inflicted my first defeat. Next was a game against Alexei, where I managed to keep my good form up and got another victory. It wasn't getting any easier as I had Marianne Kirkhan, the 2019 world champion, in round 7. I think I played well here, realising Marianne's overcommitment to the farm and meeple shortage. I was able to ensure I outscored him elsewhere. For round 8, I was playing Francisco Javier Poveda Perez. You may know him as Juliano Apostata from BGA, and he had travelled from Spain just for the Carcassonne tournament. We had a close game, which possibly came down to who drew the 4-way city tile. It was Francisco, and he went on to take the win in our game. The final round, having played most of the BGA specialists, I had a less notable game against an unknown player, which I won. This put me on 7 wins out of 9, and so I finished third behind Francisco, who won 8 out of 9 and took the gold, and Daniel, who was also on 8 out of 9 and got the silver.
As a player and an organizer, what do you expect from Spielezentrum and Hamsing Glück organizers?
I'm hoping for and expect a well-run tournament that is arbitered fairly and pre-published rules. Every player will be taking it seriously as they will have travelled far to attend. It will be nice to play the tournament and not have to worry about the organisation. You can sometimes be interrupted during a game to solve another player's query or issue. If there are any things that aren't done in an optimal way, then it might be frustrating, particularly as I'm used to many MSA practices. But the Carcassonne World Championship has been running for many years, and I've not heard anything bad about the organisation, so I'm sure it will be an excellent tournament.
Matt, I'm running out of questions. Tell us something we don't know or I haven't asked you.
I live in Watford, just north of London, and I'm a season ticket holder at Watford FC, who are in the league below the Premier League. Watford wear yellow, which is why my meeple colour of choice is yellow.
Good luck with your projects in general, and have fun and enjoy this next experience in Germany.
Thank you very much, and likewise to yourself. Good luck with the podcast.
I'd like to remind you that if you win, you must have a new interview on the Meeple podcast, like the World Champion.
Well, in that case, I hope to be back on the Meeple podcast very soon with tales from the World Championship.
Thank you for accepting the invitation to Meeple podcast.
You are welcome. There have been some great questions. I hope your audience enjoy listening.
To the audience, see you in the next episode.
Like that, head out of the